Hey everyone, well, we got our tag of the 585 strike, which is the largest gamma exposure concentration here on the SPY. We got that right here at the market open this morning. This is following this bounce off of the zero gamma level here at the end of trading the day before. Tomorrow is the big monthly October options expiration. So tomorrow's a little bit of a wild card. OpEx weeks tend to have a positive bias, but you never know on the actual expiration Friday what's going to happen. The gamma exposure levels are still positive. We're above zero gamma. We're seeing large positive concentrations at the 583 level here, the 585 and the 590. So, I'd say the bias is to the upside. We could close around the 585 level, or if some big momentum comes in, could get all the way up to 590. But again, it's a little bit of a 50-50 toss up for tomorrow. So we're just going to take it starting at the open tomorrow and see where the gamma exposure levels are taking us. One of the ways we do that is by using our 0DTE GEX flow tool. Just for example, today you can see the 585 strike, which was this brown line here, was in the lead here from the market open. Of course, market open right at 585, and we saw a shift with the 583 highlighted by this red line here coming into focus. And so a lot of times, like right at the market open, we'll reference this 0DTE GEX flow tool to get an indication of potential targets both intraday and end of day by analyzing the 0DTE contracts on the SPY, SPX, and QQQ. So it should be an interesting day tomorrow. Sean, I know you've been watching the volatility index all week long. What are you looking at in terms of volatility tomorrow and going into the next monthly OpEx cycle?
Well, Anthony, I wanted to first look at how the VIX gamma has basically been repositioned since VIX expiration this past Wednesday. And it's kind of interesting. I find myself thinking the market's overvalued. It needs to drop at some point. But if we just look at how the VIX has been repositioned in terms of gamma, wow, it looks like it's kind of indicating potential for a lot more downside and volatility. So, there may be a crash, all right, but it it may not be in the market, maybe in the VIX. But I will say, I had been kind of focused on this 19 area, and we still had a lot of volume there today. We're kind of right there now, so there's obviously a battle at this area. But I guess the way that I've changed my view of where we're headed in the short term, and with the focus on this 15 area now as being a potential target for this thing to decline. Let me go over to to look at the chart for the VIX. We may be headed toward this 18.5 area on the VIX, and any rebound we see, even if it is from this 19 area, I don't know that we're going to really make it too much beyond this 21 zone. I guess technically we might be able to make it to as high as 24, but I'm thinking we may ultimately, and this will take some time. I don't think this is going to be just down to 15 tomorrow. So we may see some market pullback again where the VIX goes up to the 21 area or maybe as high as 24. But ultimately, we may come back to this line that since July has represented support for the VIX. It's kind of funny calling it support, but basically this level where we saw volatility reverse each time in the 15 range, which seems to be a new base since July for volatility.
Thanks for that, Sean. Great overview of the VIX. Next, I want to talk about Palo Alto Networks. This is actually a reference to a post we made in our community Discord today, identifying this pattern here on Palo Alto Networks, a major cup and handle pattern. This is going back to the beginning of 2024, and you can see the depth of this is over 100 points from top to bottom, and we are coming right here to this major resistance level at 380. A breakout above this zone could be a tremendous rally opportunity in Palo Alto Networks. We've got gamma exposure growing at the 380 strike, at the 390 strike, and at the 400 strike. If we just scroll down here and take a look at our gamma exposure data graph, you can see, of course, the 380 is the largest concentration, like I mentioned, but 390 and 400 growing. Positive total gamma exposure, relatively low implied volatility when compared over the last 52 weeks. This is a great environment for Palo Alto price underlying to continue higher. And so I like this at this point, both for a shorter term play and a longer term rally opportunity.
Anthony, I came across Roku, which has very strong, in fact, to an extreme positive gamma. We've got this strike at 80. You can see on our 3D chart, most of that expires tomorrow. There's also a considerable amount at 82. Netflix just reported earnings. That's got Netflix up after hours considerably. The candles themselves look bearish, but the Keltner channels still look mostly bullish. And we're kind of right at this area where I would expect some support. So I'm looking for some time tomorrow, potentially, to see if this thing's going to try to make a run for the 80 mark.
Thanks for that, Sean. Next, I want to talk about Palantir. Palantir closing around the $42 level today. It had a couple of days of retracement here just recently after an awesome rally the previous couple of weeks. And you can see yesterday it bounced right off of this lower dealer cluster zone here just above the $40 level. We never quite made it to the 45 level, which actually is our upper dealer cluster zone. And this is actually an interesting opportunity for a bounce back play. We see this happen over and over again when analyzing on our gamma exposure dashboard. Stocks retrace into this lower dealer cluster zone, similar to how we did here in Palantir, only to then bounce and resume the uptrend into the largest gamma exposure concentration on the upside. We see this happening a lot of times in positive gamma exposure environments and upward trending markets like the one we're in now. And so Palantir is a red hot stock. There's a ton of market participants playing Palantir on an intraday basis and investing for the long term. So I think this is a pretty good setup for a shorter term play, maybe 1 to 3 weeks out into November. But I do like Palantir here for a decent risk reward entry to head back to this largest gamma exposure concentration at the 45 strike.
All right, Anthony, I've got one more, and I know we just went over USO in a Discord, and over the last few days we've highlighted it a couple of times. So something kind of going along with that commodity complex, although they do trade differently, is this U.S. natural gas. And so UNG is the vehicle that we cover on our gamma dashboard. UNG right now does have positive gamma, and it looks like we have this negative 13 gamma cluster that's expiring tomorrow. We have price coming toward this dealer cluster at 13. And I wanted to show you just a couple of interesting things about the chart. This is a stock that does have some degree of cyclicality to it. And one thing I noticed is that this year is happening almost exactly inverse to last year. Last year, we ended up having a dip and then a spike into middle of October. And this year, instead, we've had a strong dip into the middle of October to bring us to where we are now at the 1330 area. If you go back 2 years, so there's sort of a 2-year cycle, we had a very similar pattern to this year, where we actually made a low, somewhere toward the middle of October, and then we actually saw a very strong spike into the early winter season. I think it was like 50 to 70%. That doesn't mean it'll happen this year, but if that pattern does repeat, and I always like buying things, that appear to be closer to a low point than a high personally, but it may be worth, for the more adventurous, exotic, aggressive trader out there, they may want to look at this as a potential play on, gas going up into winter at some point.
Don't forget, if you guys want to access our gamma exposure dashboard and our option flow analytics tools, head on over to geeksoffinance.com. We've got a couple different membership tiers where you can sign up. I'll put a link in the description below. Also, you can access our community Discord absolutely free. We've got a lot of great traders in there talking about trade ideas and market analysis all throughout the trading session. I'll put a link in the description below. You definitely don't want to miss that. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.